The following program is a fan-made review and reaction show. It is in no way affiliated with the movie trivia Schmoedown or Skybound Entertainment.
And welcome in, everybody. This is the Inner Geekdom final review from the Ultimate Schmoedown show. Welcome in. I'm going to be your host today. Colin Morris. Joining me are the boys, John, Bogz. We've made it to the end of the line. This is the tournament. We've been at it all summer, and it is a bit corrupt around here, if I do say. Bogz, we've made it this far. How are you feeling, man? We've made it.
Yeah, I know, it's been a long journey. This and the Star Wars tournament, it's kind of occupied our summer. Kind of thankful for it happening in the first place. So obviously lots of twists and turns, some big wins. So yeah, I can't wait to get into it with you guys.
And John, I mean, it's been great over the last few months, hanging out with you guys and, really getting back into the Schmoedown. And these tournaments, they've been a treat. And where does this one, do you think, where does this one rank for you, over the years of watching, the Schmoedown?
Oh, interesting. I mean, it's probably right alongside, I would have to say, the previous Inner Geekdom tournament that saw the rise of Mark Knopik, if I had to say. Obviously, that was a great tournament in of itself. We got the all-time legendary match of Mara versus Rachel Cushing, which was great. But then also, I think if you look back at this tournament, we got to see a little bit more kind of intermatch rivalries that happened, whereas that last tournament, obviously, the big story was Mike and corruption, whereas this time, the big story was Mike, but also chance of corruption. So I guess not a lot has changed, Colin, but that's why they were both so good, I guess.
And it's crazy to think that we've come, it's been, over a year since the rise of Mara Knopik. Like, that is truly one of the unheralded rises in all of Schmoedown history until this tournament. This tournament saw the rise of a superstar and the creation of a hashtag that I am going to start trending, chance with a 3 at the end instead of an E. Because now my triple belted favorite to be is Chance Ellison. And that's who we're here to talk about, because this is what, folks, it's corruption. All right. The corruption's got me, my brain rattled. Let's get into it. Mike versus Chance, the IG final that we've all been waiting for. Shannon out here running both, managing both guys, which is now, Christian drops it at the top of the show. Because of the digital world, Shannon is able to manage both of her players equally and fairly. Did it in the speed round where she wasn't involved with either one of their answering calls. And I thought that went, as well as it could have. But pregame, John, where you at? I mean, I know it's a lot, because you got the heralded Mike Kalinowski going up against the apprentice Chance. But is there any, are you leaning a certain way before this match starts?
Yeah, I was definitely leaning towards Mike when the match started. Obviously, last episode we talked about how I had previously bet against Mike when it came to Alex Damon, and that didn't go so hot for me. But also, Mike is one of the original OGs of the Inner Geekdom division. That division has been his bread and butter. Not that it wasn't in this match, just that is kind of the thing that he is associated for. And Chance, there is that kind of question of, all right, what exactly is this guy going to be able to do? Obviously, he took out the untested rookie sensation of Robert the Spider Parker. Obviously, he managed to take on the slightly more tested Barbarian of the Finn Stock Exchange. But it's one of those things we always have to question, like, all right, is the momentum going to keep going? Is this guy who's been surprising us match after match going to continue to surprise us? Or is it going to be that moment where he's just faced with someone that's a little bit stronger than him? I really wasn't sure. I was leaning towards Mike, though, Colin. I cannot tell a lie.
Well, show me your hand and prove it otherwise. And so, Bogz, I know where you're leaning, so I'm not even going to ask that question. What was your biggest fear for Chance going into this match? Chance, finish this sentence. Chance loses this match if
Mike spun DC or DCEU in the second round. That's what I thought. I presumed that his knowledge of maybe the older movies, because we kind of discussed that with Chance, that the older ones, he doesn't have necessarily the in-depth knowledge as much as Mike would, because of the age, because of what's available at the time. So maybe if kind of Mike spun Star Trek, that's pretty much it. So they're pretty equal going in. Obviously, they're sparring partners in effect. So I was just so happy to watch it. I wanted to see a good match at the end of the day. I didn't want to see, someone potentially being maybe more relaxed, more just. I wanted that intensity. That I wanted to see who wants it more, kind of thing. So I don't know. So yeah, we're playing. These are the two best outside of the two people playing in the final. So in the next title match. So I just wanted a good match, to be honest with you, and then we got it, fortunately.
You're right, we got it, and let's get into it, because round one, guns a-blazing, and it pops off. Question 2, we get our first miss. Kalinowski going with Snoke over General Hux, with the quote, already reminding us of every match it felt like Chance had played in this tournament. He got the early lead on every single player he played in this tournament, and that seemed to be an advantage of his. And not only that, they both missed the parcel mouth question from Harry Potter, and then going further, they both missed the Darius, father of Xerxes question, again from 300 Rise of an Empire. Clearly,
I hate that movie. I haven't seen it, but I hate that movie.
Clearly on the minds of the question writers over the last couple weeks, and really making a stance on what is and what is not a comic book movie. I mean, it's like graphic novels are making the stand. V for Vendetta making another showing in this match, and 300 Rise of an Empire. It might only be 2 runs of a comic, but those movies were pretty popular at the time, and obviously you're sticking with the writers. John, what was your thought when Mike missed that, not just the second, but the third question in round one?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not so much that I think these two went into round one guns blazing. I mean, I suppose if their guns were maybe set to stun, perhaps, but well, certainly not the dominant performances. I mean, coming off of both of their previous matches against the Barbarian for Chance and against Alex Damon for Mike, they were both coming off of perfect round ones. So I did see that first round. I was like, okay, this is definitely at least starting off a bit more relaxed. Clearly, the wardrobe was not just for show. It did seem like these two weren't necessarily coming at it as hard as they have come in other matches, because we did see that 7-8 lead by Chance. To answer your question specifically, though, Colin, there was that element of me that was like, okay, was that the Ace versus Laura Kelly moment? You know, was that moment where even just early on, that singular point winds up being the thing that decides the match? And it wasn't. And, you know, it certainly was not a bad round one, but it was one of those kinds of things where I was like, all right, let's see if the steam picks up a little bit as far as this match continuing forward with 4 other rounds.
And it's interesting when you're looking at the questions being asked, very difficult questions coming from Middle Earth with the Undying Lands. I could not get the last name for Mr. Glass. I remember his name being Elijah. Just couldn't get the Elijah Price. But then hearing both of them say that was a question that they went over together. Again, seeing that they missed a lot of the same questions, which I think is interesting. You know, an interesting thing to look at. They both miss Parcel Mouth, and they both miss Darius, and only having, you know, the one difference being question 2. Bogz, our boy didn't have a perfect first round.
I know. I was like, no.
that was it for us, man. That we've been riding this for weeks. It's been a month of this. And I was a little worried that it was going to get to him because we know just how much it means to him. We know how much that's a part of his game. He feels a sense of security just getting to that extra pointer, even if he doesn't get it. The fact that he got there and the other one didn't. But to still come up with the 1 point lead is still favorable. So, I mean, where are you at going into round 2? Are you worried? Are you still as confident as you were going in? Or are you a little, did that non-perfect round 1 give you some trouble?
A little bit. Mainly, I was just a bit gutted for him because, as we discussed with him, that's where he does his best work. That's his strongest round. He didn't go perfect. I think that's maybe a good problem to have, like just getting kind of 9 out of 10. So obviously still had the lead, so that was the main thing. But just going back to the start, so I just remembered the promo of obviously that was cut. I did really like it, just them two kind of showing their highlight reel. And for some reason, all I could think of the whole way, I really like the music as well that they used. But for some reason, all I could imagine was, the corruption team kind of promo against the founding fathers team is just going to be like so electric. Like imagine like you see Moral highlights, Roca highlights, Chance highlights, Kalinowski highlights, and Shannon and Vince. It's like, what is that's going to be crazy? Like I will literally be on the edge of my seat for that match. So that's all I could think of watching that promo for me, because that was like half of it. Like I was waiting for the other half to just like explode. So I'm super looking forward to
Mike pops up with the box of drumsticks, it's like, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to talk bad about my friend?
Yeah, he's chilling, bro. Yeah,
which I thought was great. I thought that was a perfect opportunity if this was for the old Mike to return of any sort of corruption to be done. That would have been the time. That would have been the time in the storyline. But he stuck with his boy. They stuck together, and they really had that ride or die mentality in this match. And you could tell they were both like, "Oh, good guess." They're throwing. We'll get into round 2. Top of round 2. That first question, for Mike, and Chance goes, "Oh, good guess there, bud." And Mike doesn't argue it. Like Mike's like, "Yeah, it was a pretty good guess." So it felt like we were in the midst of one of their training sessions, but it just meant a little more. So that promo had me going. I was in. That music was hype. It felt like anytime we get that Hans Zimmer-y feel to something, the tension's building, it's rising. It also sounds like the music they used in the American Hero story from Watchmen, and the guy comes in with the Trent Reznor type sound behind it. Any kind of hardcore stuff like that, I dig. Let's
a lot of slow motion, like points from Mike and Chance, like pointing at the camera, loads of slow motion.
Yeah,
I was
so
like,
good.
Cool.
Everything's so good. And now it's just gotten to the point where there's so much footage of them to use for this stuff that you just can't mess up. That is like it's just all there for you to use. And I mean, they gave us more in round 2. Chance starting out, taking DC, getting every question right, going to multiple choice twice. That first question with the bikes, incredibly hard. That's something you had to have been maybe like, in the right age group to just remember that and have it hit your brain, in the right time or study it. But going into even Planet Houston, great question. That's a great question because he even gave the little General Zod nod. Planet Houston. That was pretty good. Michael Jackson, obviously. Everything in that round for DC, those first 2 questions seem to be the hardest ones. Everything else seemed to be, like we keep saying, knowing stuff, and he just knew those last 3 questions. John, how did you feel about Chance's performance in round 2?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was strong. It definitely seemed a little bit more like getting back on track and gaining that steam that I was saying I felt like we were missing a little bit out of round 1. Definitely a lot of hard questions and a lot of very impressive polls. Definitely, talking about Batman Forever, the only thing I remember trivia-wise about that movie is just how much Tommy Lee Jones hated Jim Carrey. So it was impressive to even remember that there were bikes in that movie. I mean, how could you pay attention to that? Sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear that. It sounds like aliens are abducting the construction crew outside of my apartment. That's super fun. So let's go ahead and bounce it to someone besides me as I wait to see if the aliens come to rapture me, Colin.
All right, Bogz. So obviously this picks up a little momentum for Chance, But the real kicker in this round, I'll throw it to you, the steal of Mike's second question. That to me is the moment where I'm up like, let's go. We're back in this. After if you were feeling down, were you with me? Were you cheering?
I went, Mike. That was my reaction. I was like, Mike, what are you doing? No multiple choice, no repeat, no nothing. I was like, Mike. I thought, oh, is this what everyone's saying? Is this where they're going to throw the match? But obviously, it was just a guess. It was such a close guess, though. Obviously, they mentioned that same. I forgot which school it was, but they mentioned the same one straight after. Sorry, just before, yeah. So, yeah, it was unlucky because it is in the same sentence in effect or the same scene. So that I thought, okay, that's fair enough. But to be honest with you, obviously, I'm a big boxing fan, a fight fan, and my personal favorite fighters, I know it's obviously easy choice to make, are the ones that the top echelon of the sport. So like the people that have unification, like have the most belts basically, because like they have a certain aura about them, and like they've played in so many big occasions, and just that their training is correct, that they're being looked after well, everything is, and it just had the same kind of feeling in this match. You're just watching two people at the top of their game going for 3 belts and 3 divisions, just have fun. It was just like a sparring match with kind of just Shannon just kind of patting her little her little brother on the back, saying, "Oh, well done," and obviously and telling Mike, Colin, this is what we need to do, etc. So I just kind of, whoever didn't miss, I was, as long as the scores were close-ish, I wasn't really bothered. I was just more impressed with just seeing them go back and forth and how well and how much they know. So it was just it was just a top match overall.
And speaking of Shannon, I think this was the first time that the Schmoedown world actually gets to see her manage. Really see her managerial skills. Other than she doesn't have to go full heel because there's no one to go heel at. So she could just sit there and talk
to contribute more, basically.
Yeah, and she is great with them. Even you could tell the way she is with Mike. You could tell the way she is with Chance. That they both listen to her. They both, it's not cookie cutter stuff. They're talking. She knows that Chance likes to go first, and she's not. I bet if Mike was in that situation, if Mike had the opportunity to go first and was leading going into round 2, I guarantee she would have said, "Hey, go first. He likes to go first. So why don't you go first?" There's definitely an opportunity. You could tell she wasn't going to be the one that had anything to do with this going somebody's way that it shouldn't have gone. So other than that, I thought Mike's round 2 was pretty, for MCU stuff. That's pretty. The hardest question was Steve Rogers' father. That's a hard pull. That's from the first 10 minutes of that Captain America movie, where when he's not Captain America. So it's the stuff that you tend to not remember about that movie. But great pull from Mike, and it's 18-14 at the end of round 2, bringing us to the betting round, which is always been one of my favorite rounds in these 5 rounders. And lo and behold, it's opponent's choice. And what gets talked about is a little mini story throughout the match is that Mike has been training on Star Trek over the last couple weeks. And John, where are we going?
We are going to a galaxy far, far away. Nope, wait, that's the other one.
Yes.
No, considering that, that is something that Kalinowski has very clearly been prepping. It almost makes me wonder if he's going to utilize his corruption powers, not to meddle with this match, as some folks were saying, but maybe just to manifest a Star Trek division into being, like if he's maybe thinking, well, I can't necessarily get the Star Wars belt from Alex, I'll just make myself a new Star belt. But it was a solid pull for Mike, and it clearly played to his favor because he was able to close that lead that he found himself staring down at the end of the first and second rounds. It obviously, going into that, a 4-point lead by Chance, that's tough to face down, even if it is your friend and your son. But he was able to get Star Trek, and he put that faith in himself too. That's the other thing. When it comes to the betting round, it's all about not just the momentum, not just about the knowledge, but also the faith that you put into yourself. Mike had the faith that he was going to be able to get some big points in Star Trek, and it paid off for him. Meanwhile, Chance, he knew that it wasn't necessarily something he was as strong with. That's why he spun away from it in round 2. So he played it a little bit safe while still, betting a point. He didn't go full 0. He did still put up a point, and that's why he was still able to keep the lead, because both these guys are strong. But that's one of my favorite things about the 5-pointer rounds, is that not only is it the championship level contenders like Bogz was talking about, those folks who are really prepped and ready to go and have proven that they can hang, but also the fact that they have that faith in themselves, because that's a huge thing as well in matches. It's not just momentum, it's confidence, Colin.
Yeah, and I'm looking at all this, Bogz, and you got to be thinking, Mike's coming back here. They're like, the door is open, right? Like Chance didn't do enough. That 1 point bet did not do enough to help close the door. Are you with me there? Like, Mike's got a chance here.
Yeah, so Mike's got to be the luckiest player I've ever seen with the wheel. Like, how many times he's spun his particular exact favorite slices. So, but he's got quite a few, especially in a geekdom. So it's a compliment to how strong he is as a player. Obviously, yeah, he's betted 3. I knew he was going to bet 3. I was more interested in what Chance is going to bet. So obviously, he brought the deficit a bit closer, but no doubt in my mind he was going to get that question right. But yeah, just on the back of what you're saying, John, that I would absolutely love a Star Trek division, because we've got a lot of elite players who are hardcore fans of Star Trek. So I think it would immediately make the division stronger. So like, I know Kalinowski is, I know Roca is, Irwin, Morrill, Mance, obviously Smets, and the rest of the kind of
anyone over the age of
like 30 something. Yeah, but like that's like an elite division. So it's I'd love that personally. Being a Star Trek guy. So no surprise Mike brought it closer. He spun shock is one of his strengths. Going into round 4, I was super excited for, thinking what's going to happen here, right?
So let's get to it. Round 4. I'm not gonna lie. I'm perplexed by this system. There's just kinks that can be worked out to some of this, that when these players go back and rewatch this, they're going to say, oh, that was a little interesting. So having watched this twice, not that it mattered in most of the situations, but some of the blunders that were said, didn't end up affecting things. Basically, like Christian one time called Allison, the actress who plays Queenie in the Fantastic Beasts movies, when he read the question off to Mike, he said Alan. So said like a man's name for Mike's asking of the question, but Mike still got it right. So it didn't end up mattering in the first place, but had me thinking that there might be a process to where some of this could be pre-recorded, not the questions themselves, and then running some form of the track, because there's when we're on these calls, and guys, we know this, you can talk over one another. You could lose what the other person says. And when we're in a time crunch like that, it's a lot. And I could tell that they're like, even Christian was a little rattled at the end of Chance's questions, because he just kind of sat there at the end, and Chance passed the question, and then he asked the question and then said, oh, that's it. It was just
no countdown.
No countdown. No. But he told Mike, look up in the corner, but he didn't tell Chance that. He did not tell Chance that the timer is on the screen. He told Mike that, and then Mark reiterated that the timer starts when he is done asking the question. So we got to find some form of a system to this that is the same for everyone, because right now every person has not gotten the same level of questions being asked at the same rate or at the same speed. It's just not the same, because even then Christian during Mike's round said it wasted time by saying, and going back, like, I know that's not much, but in a minute of time, for him to use time to say, and going back to the questions before, that's a detriment to Mike, even though he ended up getting those questions right. That's the kind of stuff that it's like, you will have managers like Kaiser and Dagnino not standing for issues like that, because that's going to be something that will really affect the championship match down the road if they do. Guys, tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm being a little too harsh.
it is one of those things, I think, where it kind of does boil down to a little bit of just factoring in human error. At the end of the game, at the end of the game, at the end of the day, this game is always going to be hosted by human beings, as far as I know, at least for the near future. So I think when you have a game that's hosted by people, sometimes people, they'll use filler words. All three of us know that sometimes we have a tendency to use ums and uhs and likes when we're just broadcasting. So I completely understand, and going back to this,
that. I also want to let everyone know I completely understand that. Coming it from the critical eye, that's all.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm looking at it more from just the production side of it, I guess, right? Something that we all know, or sometimes, you got to use those filler words. Sometimes reading is difficult. Sometimes you got to make sure that you have your right place in your notes. So I get it, and I kind of wonder if maybe that'll more just be a strategy used by the players going on. Remember? Like, I don't remember if Chance got the choice of going first or second in the speed round, but maybe that's something that managers and players do think about, where if they are given that choice, maybe they go, let's have the opponent go first, as opposed to other rounds where you want to keep up that momentum. Maybe we have the other opponent go first in this round, so that way there is that maybe extra bit of human error for them when they have to hear it versus when they then get to go and get a slightly more polished Christian reading the questions. I think it's one of those things where you can definitely argue that, it makes some things a little bit ickier. But I would argue that, again, that's just kind of a facet of the game. It's not just purely knowledge. It is also knowing how to play the game itself. And I think that this new speed round was evidence of that. And here I go again going ums. What I found a little bit more interesting about this speed round, Colin, and I don't know if you and Bogz agree with me, but I liked that we did get a little bit more of an explanation as to who got what points. We didn't get that so much in the Star Wars championship tournament match. I was glad that we got that breakdown this time around, hearing, okay, here's how many questions they got right, here's what they got wrong, here's how that equals up to different points. I really liked getting that, especially because we needed it, because we got a new leader of the match with this round, Colin.
Yeah, and distinguishing between the passing questions and the questions that were mistaken was a big thing that I appreciated, distinguishing between those two. Yeah, and I'm totally with you. Human error is totally the thing. And if you got to ride it to be number two, to have it be the, third or fourth time he's reading the sentence as opposed to, the first or second on air, that is something I totally agree with, that, might just have to be something that players get on board with. Also, 10 questions in 60 seconds is a lot. 8 if you're going to have them passing on questions. 8, but somebody will shut me up when somebody gets all 10 of these right. But until we see somebody get all 10 of these right, there's probably going to be, some form of argument behind it. Not necessarily from me, but, Bogz, it's 25-23, man. Chance lost 2 points, passed on 2. Looks like Mike only passed on 2, didn't get any incorrect. So, what are you thinking here, man? It's a whole new ball game.
Yeah, I just thought Mike, like some of his questions, how fast he was just getting them out. I thought he was going to get all 10, actually. Like the way he was answering, I think he got 6 in a row or something. And it was particularly the Wolverine one. How many movies did Hugh Jackman? One, like he just instantly 9, didn't he? And obviously chances he passed, and then the second time he was trying to count, and obviously he still couldn't get it. But just them little kind of, I think basically he did earn the lead there because of how well he played. But yeah, just on the back of what you're saying, John, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. If I was playing in a 5-round, I'd probably go second. Just let Christian iron out his pronunciations and the flow of things and things like that. So it gives him a practice run, almost like a live rehearsal for me. So yeah, that's probably a good idea. Tactically, that might be a good thing to do. But yeah, it was. I just thought Mike was basically solid in round 4, and I thought, Chance, man, you've gone from the lead to being like 2 down, and also the calculations at the end was really helpful. So they could have a little discussion afterwards. They could potentially challenge anything that they didn't agree with, or they could go through further. There was like a little discussion afterwards, like between Christian, obviously.
You could tell there was a bit of a break, right?
Yeah,
There was
yeah,
a
there
bit
was
of
a
an
cut, it was a
edit.
clear
It was a
cut.
bit of a cut. Yeah, a bit of a cut.
Yeah, yeah, but that definitely helped with the overall situation.
Oh,
So
yeah.
although, yeah, loads of things could be ironed out better, it was much better than the Star Wars kind of round. So I just think every kind of title match, every 5-rounder, it will just get better and better, hopefully, anyway. But excellent point, John. I didn't even think of that. That you could go second as a tactical advantage. Yeah, it was a great shout.
That's why he's here. That's why we have him here. Round 5. We've made it to the championship round. And we're swinging haymakers. It's round 5. We're throwing uppercuts. We're throwing jabs. Mike's throwing some kidney shots. Like, it's getting rough out here in these streets. And what do we say every single week on this show? Take me to my 5-pointer. If you take me to my 5-pointer, you have my respect. You have earned it. You have, in the words of Mulan, no, Hercules, we have gone the distance. There we go. Found it. We have gone the distance. And that is all we have to do. John, I mean, this is probably one of the best 5th rounds I've seen in a championship, just in terms of stacking questions, in terms of overall, making everybody feel like they're getting involved, from the normies that watch this to the hardcore sweaties that watch this. That last question rattled me.
To quote Mulan, this guy's got him scared to death. That was an intense 5th round, man. I feel like, in every 5th round that I see from these guys, there's always that one question where I'm like, okay, I could have gotten that. I think I could have probably pulled that. I did not have that this time around. I feel like even questions that when I heard the answer, there was part of me that was like, oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I knew that. I didn't know it. This was really a 5th round full of 5th round caliber questions. I was interested going into it because I was a little bit worried about Chance. Not because he's a bad player, of course, but because it did seem like he was beating himself up a little bit after his 4th round performance, which, while it was still a good performance, I get it. Obviously, he did not get as many points as he would have wanted. It was that moment where momentum did switch up against him, so I understood it. But he did just stick with it. It's similar to what we talked about with the Star Wars tournament final with Ace versus Andrew, where it's that element of not giving up. Chance stuck with it. He managed to get some hard pulls out, and that's why he was able to take Mike to his 5, as you were saying, Colin. But it was a whole heap and mess of tough questions.
Yeah, and I'm leaning towards Mike's questions as one of the roughest batch. Like, some of these deep cuts that he was throwing, they were deep. These were deep cuts. And I mean, I've seen Lord of the Rings endless amounts of times. Our trumpet section in high school band was all Lord of the Rings characters. My best bud and I were Merry and Pippin because we caused so much trouble. Like, and there, these Middle Earth questions, it makes me so mad because I feel like it's something that I've watched and read. I haven't read the books as much as like Harry Potter, but still, and you get to these questions and they make you feel so dumb, like so dumb. And I guess, John, is that what it's like watching Star Wars, like the Star Wars stuff, and they're just like asking stuff, and you're like, that's real? That's a thing?
Oh yeah, I mean, this was insane. I mean, I got that even from movies that I had seen though with this match. You know what I mean? Like the Star-Lord question up in round 2 with Mike, where how he upset whatever kind of Duchess. Like that sounds like a thing a Star-Lord would do.
I'm pretty sure he was the only member sexually active. The only sexually active member of the Guardians.
We don't know what Groot gets up to, man. We don't know what Groot gets up to.
First Groot, totally agree. We got a couple more movies before younger Groot,
Yeah, that's a fair thing to stress, and we'll
ever
just
since
move right
you got just a little bit of sap, you've gotten a whole lot more. That's one of the best.
Not bad impression.
Yeah, but yeah, man, these were some tough ones. Obviously, Chance got 2 different superhero movie company names, which is absurd. And then Kalinowski, I totally got where he was coming from with just trying to envision any of this objectively silly names for things that exist in Lord of the Rings. Like, I like Lord of the Rings as well, but they got things called Brandywine, Brandy Buck, all
Okay,
of these
so
just...
there's a formula, right? You know how there's like the Wu-Tang Clan rap name generator? Like you can create anything. That's how Childish Gambino got his name. I feel like it's the same thing Tolkien did, where it was just like a noun merger, and it would be like Bourbon Lane or Bourbonshire, or any kind of alcohol plus land type, and you got a Lord of the Rings place, John. I mean, I don't even remember what the answer was.
Yeah. Well, I remember the answer to when I plugged my name into the Wu-Tang Clan generator name, and all I got was string cheese, and it didn't feel very nice. I was pretty upset about that. But Bogz, what did you think of round 5, buddy? Again, especially with Chance being your boy, starting off a little bit shakier on that round 5. What were you thinking as far as going into it, and then the result?
Yeah, I was pretty much just glad Chance got the chance to answer a round 5 question, because I was like, oh, people are saying all these things that you can't hit a 5-rounder. I actually knew that one. That's the only one I knew in round 3, because a lot of events happen in that movie, in that place. So they talk about it loads, and it's just I just remember the name of that lab. But yeah, Mike's, I didn't think he was stalling. I didn't think he was doing like trying to pull it. He just, I knew he didn't know it, and he was kind of just stretching it out. But yeah, it was a bit brutal, man. He did kind of indicate earlier that Lord of the Rings weren't one of his stronger slices as well. So obviously went down to the 5 round, but I was getting more and more on the edge of my seat when every repeat, I was like, no, does he know it? No, like each one, yeah. So I was a bit gutted for him, because obviously I would have liked to seen the Smets match, but yeah, Chance, man. Yeah, our boy, you done it. We told you it'd be all kind of corruption final. 4 wins. Played absolutely amazing, man. And there you go. Who said Chance can't hit a 5-rounder? Yeah, take that back.
Yeah, come on this show and say it to our face.
Yeah, it's just, one thing I've learned out of this tournament is that, particularly I'm in the inner geekdom division, I noticed that I'm not in the future going to go off hype, and I'm not going to go off particularly players' recommendations about who is going to kind of win tournaments, or because I remember specifically and quite clearly, like for example, Kalinowski and Smets saying that they think Parker is going to be the best IG player of all time. And I'm thinking, you got to prove it, man. You got to prove it. Even against them, I would always back a champion or former champion for experience. They've been there, done it. So yeah, I'm never going to, like, even the Barbarian, the thing start guys still saying now, this guy is going to be a legit 4-belted champion or threatening for it. Like, no, not now. Like, no, I'm not going to believe that. I'm going to believe someone who's been there, done it, got experience over hype or over a newer player. So I did kind of establish that even with respect to Star Wars as well. Like, people were overhyping certain players, where I knew that kind of certain people had more experience. But yeah, I just kind of noticed that out from the outset, that I'm definitely going to take that in consideration when kind of making a prediction. Because, coming from a sports angle, you kind of use all the data available to you, and the way you analyze it and break it down, and people's experience and the situation, it's case by case, not just, oh, this guy, these guys think this guy's going to win because, they've seen that he's a good player. No, that's not enough for me. And I did kind of, moving forward, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah, well, I think Chance is kind of an interesting example of a middle ground there, Bogz. Like, certainly Chance is one of the newer players in the league. He just came up in season 6 when the corruption tournament happened. So he's still one of the newer guys, but he does now also have, like you were saying, that experience. He's had a little bit of time in the league to feel out how the major leagues of this sport work, essentially. And yes, he's also got a belt to his name, but he didn't have that belt in Inner Geekdom going into this tournament. He'd only ever played 1 match before, and he'd lost to everyone's favorite person, Brandon Hanna. So I think it is interesting to see a little bit, not just the hype and not just, the new rookie sensation flavor of the week, some might say, but to see someone that does have that hype, that does have that knowledge, that is this new force in the game, and then coupled with even just a little bit of major league experience, sometimes that's all it takes to make a great winning combination. And that's what Chance has, my friend.
It does. I just want to say though, sorry, just to clarify, like I'm not holding it against anyone that does that. Just for me personally, that's just the way I like to break things down. Of course, you want to hype up a new player, you know, that's you think's got a great ability, absolutely fine. Of course, you within your rights to do that. But me, the way I analyze it, I was kind of buying into that, which I'm a bit disappointed with myself, even though I've still backed these kind of more experienced guys. But even like, for example, I'll give you another example of this where kind of the Smets and Chanju situation, it's like a foregone conclusion that Smets is going to win this match. Like, I'm not seeing that. Like, I'm seeing Chanju is what when they last played, did they not go to that down to the 5 rounder, right? Like the last question in the 5 round. So how is like everyone saying Smets is going to win this match? It doesn't go like that. Not for me anyway. That's just the way I kind of break things down. And even with respect to obviously the pay-per-view that's happening, for me, obviously going into it, like Roca's a 4-time champion, and like it seems like the majority of people want to go with Irwin. Just he's a 1-time champion. Like just for me, I don't know, just from the outset, that's the way I like to break things down. So, but yeah, anyway, that's enough of my my mindset.
No, I love it, man, because it's a whole. Because that's how I come at it. Because I look at it like, how often does like a Zion Williamson rookie sensation truly like have
the only one, Colin? I know the point you're going to make. Sorry, the only one who I've ever thought of who's done that. In fact, there's 2. I'll tell a lie. Oyama and Mara Knopik.
Yeah, that's it.
In the history of the Schmoedown.
The only 2 to be able to walk up, and come
From
up
scratch.
and snatch it, to snatch the belt immediately. Like to come in to make that stance and say, I'm here to do this, to do it. And now we're waiting for the next chapter from those 2 players, because I know it's coming. I know Paulo Yama's got more things to say. I know Mara's got more things to say. John, who were you thinking of when I said that?
Well, I was going to say, yeah, like he doesn't have the belt yet, but he could very easily, and that's Ace Cabrera. He was a very much rookie sensation. Yeah.
Totally.
I know we all love Ace, so I just want to make sure that we all remembered that we love Ace. You know what I mean?
No doubt. You're right. Yeah.
And that's the thing where it's like very rarely, and Zion is even a very poor use of that, because very rare does a rookie come in and do it on their own. It doesn't, if we look at solo sports, it just doesn't happen. You know, like racers, even like NASCAR, Formula One, those kind of competitors, you know, it's like, well, we're driving here. Yeah, but it's the guys that have been driving for like 10 years that are winning like every other week. It's not the dudes that's like 21 that got his license 4 years ago. You don't have like soccer players that, I mean, you have soccer players that are football players that are like 16, 17 playing on major squads, but they're not the focal piece of the team. Exactly, that's something that the Schmoedown is going to have to learn, that hype can kill you.
It'll get you so far.
Hype can get you so 100%, but you got to be able to back it up with your talent after a certain point. A hype can get you to the door, but you have to stay, or else we will kick you out in a heartbeat.
That's what happened, yeah. And just in the whole, that happened twice in a geekdom with Parker and with Barbarian, and they're being favored over more experienced players. Yeah, not exactly in a geekdom, I understand, but yeah, I just didn't. I thought, yeah, I just kind of, you're spot on 100% right, Colin, where people are going to have to learn that. And that's me coming from a sports background. You know, I don't want to force my opinion on people or anything, but I don't notice that mindset all the time in the Schmoedown, which I think we'll learn over time. But yeah, I've noticed that kind of from the, and that's how I've got a lot of these.
Come into WWE and do that? Never. And if they do, they know that belt's getting snatched off them like 3 weeks later at the next pay-per-view. You know that. Like if there's like a title fight on SmackDown that actually ends up with the guy losing, he's coming back for it. They know. And it's hard. Ask Paulo Yama how hard it is to hold the belt. Case in point, it seems hard to get there, but it's even harder to stay at the top. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, Damon and Merle are automatics on my top, you know, my Mount Rushmore, just because of the staying power. And that has to be respected. You know, it's that LeBron James thing. He's best player in the league. He's been doing it for 17 years, been at a level and keeps raising the level. That's what you got to do. The best are the best because they keep raising the bar year after year after year. And I am so terrified of Dan Merle right now. If I was any competitor going up against Dan Murrell with the, the training time that he's had as part of the exchange, just being, just soaking up all the matches that they've had to go through, all the training sessions over the course of the year. Oh my gosh. Are you guys ready for this? Like, this spectacular this spectacular 5 at the end of this year, no matter what matches we get out of it. Wow is all I got to say. But that's it, guys. The IG tournament for 2020. That's it. It's over. So, John, I got to ask you first, man. What was your favorite moment of the entire tournament, aside from Chance winning, aside from the delay of, Mike waiting it out and missing that 5-pointer? What did it for you? What was that moment?
Oh man, that's a tough question. I think in some respects, one of the bigger matches that led into this tournament might have been Kalinowski versus Zipper. Obviously, as much as Mike kind of downplayed the history of it from his perspective, obviously Zipper was coming at it with a lot. So I thought that was a great match. I also thought that Kalinowski versus Damon also had a lot of hype going into it. Obviously, it was not the full-on knockout fight we thought it was going to be, but it was a literal knockout from just Mike taking out Alex pretty easily. But honestly, man, the big story, of course, is Chance. And I think one of the things that it sets up that I wanted to talk about a little bit is definitely, you guys are right, hype is not something that can carry you, but momentum is huge. And if you compare the momentum of these two guys, obviously, they won. They won all their matches. That's how they had a match together. That's how we got this full-on, corruption fight. But it is interesting to compare the momentum of Mike, who had to, go up against Greg Alba, who was still very new to the division. He definitely had a hard match with Zipper that I was just talking about, but then had a pretty easy fight against Alex Damon, all things considered. Whereas with Chance, he went up against Paul Oyama, a guy he'd previously lost to in singles, a former singles champion, and he managed to get that win. He went up against Robert Parker, everyone's favorite to win the whole Ding Dong tournament. The person who folks were saying was going to be the next great Intergeekdom player. He beat him. And then he went up against Barbarian, who's one of the easy candidates for Rookie of the Year, I believe, unless he also had his first match last season. I can't remember. But he's got to be at least in the discussion for one of the best new players if he's not just a straight-up rookie. And he beat that guy too. I feel like the momentum is such a huge thing because, again, it's just having that confidence, kind of like what we were talking about going into the betting round. That's such a huge thing when it comes to the Schmoedown. Chance not only has the confidence, but now he also has the background in this division to really big himself up, and rightfully so. That's part of why when I look at this tournament, not only am I thinking, wow, Chance really proved himself as a 3-division player, not only can I see myself using that Chance with a 3 hashtag that you were talking about, Colin, especially because we know corruption has a habit of spelling words a little bit wrong, but it does kind of make me wonder that no matter who Chance is going to be facing in the title match, whether it be Chandru or Kevin, I kind of feel like it's got to be Chance that wins it, because even though Kevin and Chandru will have experience in a title match by the time that they face Chance because of their match coming up, I feel like Chance, with just the momentum that he will have had leading into it, and then on top of that having the time to study, whereas Chandru or Kevin will only have 1 match to go, or I guess Kevin will have 2 because of the Patreon championship match that he won as well. But definitely just looking at that momentum, I feel like it's Chance's world right now that we're all just sort of living in.
Hey, no arguments from us on that fact. But taking a look at where we're at before the big match coming up, standings, man, Corruption just got up to 2 points behind Corruption, both with 15 matches played.
I think you mean Finstock. Corruption is now up behind Finstock.
Excuse me. Finstock Exchange is sitting at 29 points. Corruption sitting at 27 points. An unbelievable turnaround, because were we not rewind episode 1, put that clip in of us sitting here saying, wow, it's looking rough for Corruption. Oh boy, oh my. Yeah, we were so naive. And like Chance said in the match, he said, oh, those were simpler times. Because now Corruption is hanging in there for serious contenders. And if I'm Corruption, I'm buying every bit of Ethan Erwin gear. I'm revving hard because Finstock Exchange cannot get any more points on their watch. They have to be anti-Finstock Exchange for the rest of the season if they want any chance, because it just seems like, I mean, Finstock Exchange, the average losses, it looks here, is about 6.5. About 6 is the average losses. I mean, Finstock's in at 5. Not saying they're right for another one, but I don't think it's going to happen this week. But Bogz, Corruption is now. Do you think that there's a real possibility for them to pass the exchange?
Most definitely. I just want to come to that in a second. I just want to summarize the Iacovetta tournament quickly. My best moment was just probably Parker missing a few questions in round 1. However many he missed, I think he missed 2. I was shocked. I was so shocked, and Chance going perfect from that moment, just kicking on, and then obviously winning the whole thing. That was probably my best moment. I'm not gonna lie, I did prefer overall the Star Wars tournament over the Iacovetta one, because I was edge of my seat every question, every match for that tournament. This one, it was a bit more, especially the final was a bit more relaxed. It was had an exhibition vibe to it, but overall, yeah, the kind of rise of Chance and having, for me, cementing his place as a nomination, another nomination for Player of the Year, him and Ace, anyway, I'd put there. Even potentially Kalinowski, Malonta. I mean, from the players that we've seen so far, obviously we've got a lot of more matches to come. But yeah, just going on to the league standings. These, how many points did you say they're on? 27?
They're at 27 and Exchange is at 29.
So 27, that's, I think Laura Kelly got 3 points for them. So the other 24 points are from 2 players. They've got 2 players, really, at the moment, anyway. Obviously, they're going to have more players in the singles tournament. But at least the Finstock Exchange have, obviously, they've got the 4 big all-timers, plus they got Malonta, plus they got the Barbarian, plus they got a few more players to play. But these guys, 2 players, 2.5, well, 3, okay, let's call Laura. Got 3 players against, what, 6? So that just shows how high level they are. It just shows how much they've kind of leapfrogged. And it shows how good Shannon is as well, making the right decisions, making the right calls, not panicking. Obviously, she had a few losses earlier on in the season, showing literally in the match, making the right tactical decisions, telling Chance to slow down, sometimes you speak too fast kind of thing. Just giving him that pep talk. So yeah, all around, like, if I was a Finstock Exchange, I'd be so terrified of these guys. Coming in the singles tournament, they're coming in teams. Yeah, you guys have got to win every match to keep that lead. So yeah, thoroughly impressed. And the Den are not far behind though. They're in a really good position as well. They're 3rd. Yeah, they're a few points behind. As far as I'm aware, they've got a couple of matches in hand. That's if the Pride do well. Yeah, sorry, they're 4th. Yeah, they're 4th, but they still have played less matches. I'm assuming, obviously, if the Pride win a few and they have a good run in the singles tournament, they have a better position to kind of catch Corruption as well. So they're not completely out of it. I think them 3 are playing for the top 3. So sorry, I meant Swag. Sorry, I'm getting confused with the team names. So I meant Swag. Yeah, Swag have got a couple of games behind, so they're the ones that are kind of, they're kind of top heavy as well with players. So yeah, the top. But now I was more interested in the bottom, kind of the league about a month ago. Now I'm more interested at the top, like Corruption throw their hat in there with the Finstock Exchange. Now it's kind of all up in the air. So yeah, really exciting going into these other tournaments and other divisions.
Do you guys foresee some form of like Royale? Something like that, where they just like throw the teams in, and Christian's like, "All right, it's like
the best player this team, best player this team." But, yeah.
There's like some for like the managers, and once we're able to get back into the studio, you being able to see Finstock go up against Shannon and be like, "Well, we'll throw down right now. Who you got? Oh, I got this. Let's go!" And he like pulls up the boys. It's like like Warriors come out to play, yay! And everybody starts coming out of weird places and stuff. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that I get really excited for with the factions. Is the kind of the real fighting that we can get into once we get back to the studio. John, what were you about to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, definitely those 4 factions that you were talking about, Bogz, those are some of the biggest ones to keep an eye out for, especially because now that we are out of Inner Geekdom world, a world where Mike is especially a shining star, and whereas folks like the Finn Stock Exchange, Swag, and Den were not as prepared for, obviously, all 3 of those factions kind of had folks pulling double duty a little bit, with folks like the Barbarian, folks like Paulo Yama and Ben Goddard kind of coming into the division for the first time. So it's going to be interesting now that a lot of those 3 other factions are going to have players in their home field again, playing in a division they're a little bit more comfortable with. But of course, Chance, he was a tourist essentially in Inner Geekdom as well. He came in and won the whole thing. And now he, someone that is originally a teams and singles player, is also going to be in this tournament alongside Mike, who's also a triple threat. It's going to be intense. I think the next match we could possibly get between Corruption and the Finstock Exchange is if Adam Collins beats Andres Gallegos and then goes up against either Dan Murrell or John Roca. So that's going to be a tough one. That's going to be a little bit tough for Corruption, but stranger things have happened. You know what I mean? But definitely a wonderful send-off to the Inner Geekdom division, at least for this point in the season, as far as regular matches, not including the title matches we're, of course, getting. And what a success story for Corruption.
John, I know you said that you think Chance's momentum will push him past whoever is put before him. Bogz, I'll pose it to you differently. Who has the best chance to stop that momentum? Smets or Chandru?
Tough. Going on that match, though, yeah, everyone does, including myself, love Smets as a champion, as a player, as a competitor. But I personally see what I've seen from kind of other after shows and other kind of even players predicting that match. They are completely backing Smets based on, well, obviously ability, but also based on sometimes personality. Sometimes they like him more. They're a fan of Smets. But like I've said a few episodes, I nearly always go back for the underdog. I find some angle to where I can justify the credibility and the prediction of backing underdog. And this guy is an elite player. We have no idea. He doesn't go on many other after shows. I do. You can see how he plays. He has elite prepping and studying, and the kind of questions he pulls, things like that. So I'm kind of secretly backing Chandru on this, but I am a fan of Smets. No disrespect there, but I am backing Chandru to upset Smets there. And if he was to play Chance, I would go Chance. Based on momentum, based on all the kind of experience he's going to go through. And yeah, I genuinely believe Chance is one of the hottest players in the game right now. He's a threat in, like I said, all 3. Maybe if Smets was going to play Chance, that's a different scenario. So obviously A can beat B can beat C, but C can beat A kind of thing. That's what the Schmoedown is like, right? So I think Smets could beat Ace, but I think Ace. I think Smets could beat Chance, but I think Chance will beat Chandru, if that makes sense. That's the way I see it all play out. But yeah, going into the I don't know what your thoughts are, Colin. Going into the Inner Geekdom final, the title match, who do you think is going to win?
I mean, I respect the hell out of Smets. I respect his game. I respect his prep. I respect, of course, like the just the fervor at which he tackles everything in this game. The way he came out on the stage that one time, honestly, scared the hell out of me. Yeah. He came out on that live event, was just like, John, much like our friend All Might, he said, I am here. And I am not going anywhere. And he hasn't. And that's the one thing that I always say, that like Smets is cementing himself amongst those heavy hitters of the Mount Rushmores of Schmoedown competitors, is standing power. and he has that mentality, that personality. But there's just something about Shanshu that you just look at him and you're like, that guy could beat anyone. And that's the way, like, when you hear Alex Damon talk about Star Wars, it's the way these guys talk about it. We're splitting hairs here. We're splitting hairs to what they know. And right now, I don't have any reason to believe that these two don't know the exact same stuff. So, I mean, it's 51-49. I mean, I'll probably pick Smets closer to day of. Right now, my heart says Chandru, and my brain says Smets. So, with that being said, I think that'll do it for our IG final review, guys. I mean, it's been great. This tournament's been so much fun. I loved it. Anytime, you can look forward to geek stuff 2 times a week. I mean, what are we talking about here? We get to, stretch those geek brains during all this craziness, and it's been awesome. And we made a bit of a wardrobe change, but we're back to discuss the pay-per-view portion of the weekend Schmoedown action. Guys, I mean, now we've seen the pay-per-view. Everyone watching, hopefully you've seen the pay-per-view. If not, come back after. It's an absolutely spectacular event. The Schmoedown Throwdown, first one of the year, back in quarantine. John, Bogz, the people have just, been watching us talk about the IG final, but it's been a little bit. How was last night, John? I know you watched it, late into the night, but how did everything hit you?
Yeah, intense, certainly. Like I talked about in the live stream that we did on the Ultimate Schmoedown Show YouTube channel, which you can check out now, the VOD, if you haven't seen it. I was talking about how I was really looking forward to seeing some of that live event energy, some of that you only really get from these kind of big events. And I think we got as much of that as we could in the digital space. I thought it was good. Definitely a lot of intensity, though, Colin. That is for sure. And, of course, we'll talk about that when we actually get into the matches.
Now, Bogz, you got to have breakfast with the Schmoedown. What was that like? I know, you hit the, you went to sleep right after our live stream. So the spoilers, hopefully didn't find you in your dreams, or hopefully you didn't watch the match in your dreams. I've actually done that before. I've gotten so hyped for a movie, I watched it in my dreams the night before. That happened with The Force Awakens. But Bogz, how did yeah, exactly. Yeah, you never know. How did last night go for you, or this morning?
I actually watched the teams match first. I couldn't last anymore. So as soon as kind of Winston was saying, "Oh, thank you, Jesus," like in his post-match celebration, I don't even remember who replied. I just fell asleep immediately after that. So I just saw the 5-pointer, and then I fell asleep. And then I remember looking at my phone, thinking, "Oh, getting messages, shall I?" And then I've just watched it when I woke up. But yeah, so much kind of drama on both matches. Both went full 5 rounds plus. 5-pointer plus, I meant. So yeah, I mean, it was just awesome all around. I mean, not too many kind of tech issues. Obviously, we've got a few that we can discuss and things like that. But overall, it was worth the money.
Oh, absolutely. And just proving that over the next couple weeks that this August is probably going to be the biggest value for that $10 you're ever going to see for the Schmoedown. So, if you haven't become a patron of the Schmoedown, hop on it because it's great over there. The Discord's great. That's how you can get over there if you want to get involved in some fan leagues, and get over there. The patron, it's where it's at. Not to, it helps us out because, we're all part of one big Schmoedown family. So supporting the Schmoedown, it's like supporting us. So, John, we're going to go ahead and get into this first match. But I was anxious about the team format. We talked about it yesterday. We talked about what it was going to be like. We probably said the only change we were going to see was going to be probably closer to like the speed round of the championship rounds that we had seen so far in the tournaments. How did the team format work out for you? Is this something that you're excited to see more of for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly very interesting now that in the digital format, we, the audience, are able to hear the players kind of conferring with themselves. That's something new to this weird quarantine Schmoedown landscape. It is fun, though, obviously, to see these players working everything out, to see the knowledge on display as they're getting answers ready. I had figured that this was probably going to be the format of round 2, just trying to think about how they were testing it out with the speed round. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's a smart call. And just like I then agreed with Winston's challenge about making sure that there is no possible interference of the teams being able to hear the other folks talking amongst themselves, unlike us, the audience. So I thought it worked pretty well, and it made for a fun match, Colin.
And I was honestly anticipating a little more maybe not one-sided, but I definitely was not anticipating this was a bloodbath. I mean, this was a punch for punch. I mean, over and over and over again. Bogz, who were you feeling going into this? I mean, I know we probably talked about it on the live stream, but who are you feeling going into this Deep 13 final exam matchup?
Well, it started from the start for me with the intro music. I forgot how much I love Swag's intro music with the promos. And I've just made a note to say the delinquent is hilarious. that's a note. Yeah, almost everything he said at any point I laughed at. Like I just thought like it's just his humor, that the kind of dark humor he's got. So that was really funny. I just put as well just Winston saying it just in the promos, it's time for your final exam. I just kind of like that overall kind of way of breaking it, kind of going into the match. But yeah, no, I was super impressed by both teams. Really solid. Sorry, Lon saying this isn't his apartment. Like, that's not my dog. Like, I was thinking,
no one owns dogs. Dogs are owned by no one. They are free creatures. I was done. I think
that actually helps Ayami. Like just maybe eases him a little bit. Maybe not so much pressure. Maybe makes him smile, that kind of thing. Because obviously he brought that super intensity last season, which I've heard him say afterwards that it's kind of it took a toll on him. So now he's obviously going in relaxed. Going into round 1. Sorry, were you going to say something, John?
Yeah, well, I was going to say definitely agree with you that it helped loosen Paul up a little bit. He was cracking up throughout the match. It was a good time. One thing that's very interesting to note, though, is that there is some sort of drama with Lon as far as Winston goes. Obviously, Winston was talking a little bit about how he wasn't sure if Lon was going to show up. But then if you follow the Schmoedown on various other platforms, you saw that Winston and Lon had a little bit of a video call wherein Lon was hanging out with Video Drew, a member of an entirely different faction. So I don't know. I don't know if we're going to see some of that popping up. I don't know what kind of magic the delinquent is learning, but that was just something interesting I saw. Funny guy, Lon, but also very knowledgeable. And I don't think Winston's the only manager that knows it, Colin.
Yeah, and it seems to me like Lon's change of persona, this whole new thing, it's made him a better player. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. It just feels like he's a little freer. The guy who we were listening to in round 2, discussing answers with Paul, still slightly, sticking to the character, but was in it. Like he wasn't, didn't feel like it was, he felt like Lon, the character, was a stubborn guy, and this was somebody who was a willing partner. You actually saw him competing, and that was great to see. Because the professor gig for a while kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I don't know, it kind of got old after. I felt like it kind of got old after a while, and this is so great. Like I love this. Like I was laughing. I just couldn't stop. Just like you, Bogz, I could not stop laughing. And then one thing I thought was hilarious at the start of the match, Christian goes, "So, are you guys ever have you heard anything about these guys? Deep 13? Have you heard anything about Paul Oyama or Lon Harris?" "Nope. Haven't heard of them." They're like silent, like, nope, don't know anything about these guys. I think that's great. I think there's something to say about the old guys coming back. Not old, but the older players coming back to meet some of the newer players. And that's going to be, we talked about that in the live stream, that's something I'm excited for. So John, let's get into round 1. What's up? What's going on?
Well, not to keep plugging that live stream that we did, but A, it was very good. And B, one of the things I talked about was the differences between these two teams, likening them to, characters in Pokemon, whereas Deep 13, I kind of saw them as the gym leaders, very good at a specific focus, whereas Final Exam has a little bit more of that type coverage that you like to see from an actual player character. And that is something that I think we definitely saw. Obviously, like you were just saying, Colin, Alonso and Whitney do not necessarily study the game as much as some other players might. They didn't know that much about their opponents going into this match, but they were still able to get some darn answers correct. And a lot of the same stuff they were getting correct as well. Whereas if you look at Final Exam, one of the very interesting things is Paul was the only person who got the first question right, and he was the only person that got the last question wrong, because you could see how Lon and Paul have sort of complementary knowledge, and you see a little bit more of that later on in the game as well. But that first round I thought was a really interesting testament of that difference in these two teams. 4 good players, to be sure. Deep 13, 2 gentlemen, let's say. Let's not do any speculation on their age. Let's just say 2 gentlemen that have been in the game for a minute, versus Paul, who's a student of the news school, and Lon, who is no longer a student of anything other than Video Drew's Black Magic. It was a fun first round, Colin.
Yeah, I would say that Lon has become a student of the streets and is sticking to them, and is probably somewhere between Sunset and maybe looking headed towards a pier. Maybe somebody find him. I hope he's eating. Somebody make sure he's eating, because I think that's important. I think somebody needs to make sure that Lon's okay, because he's out there right now and I'm here for it. But Bogz, how was it seeing the Brady Bunch up there on screen? That was a lot going on up there. I think it went well though, but was it a lot going? Was it too much at points, or did it work out?
No, I think because we're all experienced like hardcore fans, so I think for us it was fine. Maybe if it was someone new, maybe you wouldn't kind of exactly know who's on whose team, that kind of thing. But no, overall, I thought I was quite impressed, and I think they kind of talked us through the kind of what's happening, who's coming in, especially on the with the first kind of team going first, how it was all going to happen, who's going to be in where, who's going to be off screen. I thought that was all quite well explained. So no, I thought it all kind of all kind of made sense until Deep 13 went for their round.
Yeah, and then so let's get into a bit of the drama, and too much drama. Just kind of ironing out some rules, right? It kind of felt like that's what it was, because Winston kind of challenges Christian, saying that Deep 13 are allowed to stay in the StreamYard room with them while Final Exam was answering their second round questions, even though Final Exam had been kicked out of the room for Deep 13's questions. So it just seemed like the only fair thing to do would be for the other team to have to do the exact same thing that the other team did. And it's just a blunder. I'm sure that wasn't even written in the rules, because it's, those rules, it's new. So it's just glad to see that, it went smoothly. It wasn't too much contention by Christian. He was just kind of like, oh yeah, duh, that makes sense, and moved on. John, so what happened in round 2? I mean, it seemed just other than, everybody just beating each other up and just points being scored endlessly.
That's right. Yeah. One of the things I've enjoyed about this Throwdown event specifically is now that we're getting back into the singles and teams division, there are a lot more questions that I'm knowing the answers to. So that's given me a nice little sense of superiority, I guess. And I did get a little bit of that fun, but definitely these 4 all knew a lot of the answers, knew all of them, just, albeit with a little bit of multiple choice tossed in there. Deep 13 spun Festival Darlings, the slice that got them the upset victory over Tom and Paul in their last match. Only having to go to multiple choice on that last me and Earl and the Dying Girl question, which, to be fair, yeah, I feel like, especially considering the other questions that they got in that round, that was decidedly tougher. than anything else they got in that round. So it made sense, and they were still able to pull it off, which I thought was very impressive. And then on the flip side, you have Final Exam spinning Spinner's Choice. And so they went with Adam Sandler, Mr. Sandman himself, and they managed to get 12 out of 12 possible points. They didn't need to go to multiple choice, and that meant that they were able to extend that lead, rather, a little bit more during that round. It's one of those things where, like you were saying, Colin, everyone was getting questions right, left and right. It was just about that one little bit of an edge. And Final Exam got a little bit of an edge in round 1, and they got another little bit of an edge in round 2.
And it seems like that edge definitely comes from, I just got to feel like Paul is a student of this game. Like, obviously, like, rose up from the fan leagues, took the title, youngest champion. I mean, you watch him, and I watched him on Rundown after the Rundown guys went live, and Paul came on, and he said, "Yeah, I mean, I think Adam Sandler's only been chosen once, and it was a pretty skimp cat." He said it was pretty bare, top level, surface level knowledge of Adam Sandler stuff. He's like, "Why not?" And then, when they went for it, I was like, "Oh wow, these are soft." Not soft. The last one was not too much of a softball Adam Sandler question with Steve Buscemi being the bassist. That was a bit harder of a question. But in terms of having listened to the IG tournament and the Star Wars tournament, when stuff is getting really sweaty, to see levels of questions like that, Paul was just on it to think like, oh, yeah, these are going to be way easier compared to the other stuff on that wheel. Because seeing all the other stuff on that wheel, I was like, oh God, I haven't thought about any of that stuff in like 6 months. Got to get back on that train. Bogz, what are your thoughts coming out of round 2? Are you thinking that Final Exam has this locked down? Is deep 13, they still got a shot?
Yeah, obviously, like John's saying, just going to the multiple choice once. Apart from that, they're both getting perfect rounds. My issue was on round 2 is that a couple of times, and it might sound a bit harsh, but Christian was getting a little bit flustered. He lost track of the questions once or twice, like if it was a third or fourth question, and you could see it in his face that he's juggling so many things at once, and that brought back a thought to me in first seeing some of the initial kind of online matches, is that why aren't there other, I don't know the answer, but why aren't there other hosts ever? And maybe he can just work in the background as a producer, as an engineer, hosting the call, maybe making the decisions on challenges, and maybe just have other hosts just generally, reading the questions, that kind of thing, instead of him doing everything. Because you can see, you're dropping people in and out, trying to make the right decisions. And obviously with the whole kind of round 2 situation with, Deep 13 kind of being off the call, that kind of thing. So obviously what Winston rightly challenged. I think he would have kind of potentially not done that if he wasn't kind of juggling everything at the same time. So yeah, obviously I do completely respect what he's doing, but it'd just be nice to see another host. That's just another reason for me to see another host, really. So if he could just do all that stuff kind of separately to reading the questions as well, because the kind of more matches we have, more title matches, more drama, more tension. Maybe someone else should be kind of doing all of it and just helping the load, basically.
Yeah, hosting and TDing is not the easiest thing to do.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, being technical director on any broadcast has its own challenges, and then to be the host of it at the same time it's a lot to ask, and we're all learning. And that first match was the biggest undertaking he's had to do this entire time, and you can just tell it's a lot. But I think he prefers whatever happened last night to doing the speed rounds over in a championship round over that, because that cannot be fun. I know that's not easy. I know that's hard. It's like the other options, the only other things you can think of, they just don't even make sense. What do you do in this situation? Do you record them? Do you pre-record them? Do you somehow get it down to 60 seconds? It's impossible, right? Like we talked about the different options, and you're splitting hairs, and to a point where we're playing movie trivia on the internet. And, that's kind of, I eventually, once I think about a problem with this for more than about 5 minutes, kind of got to think, well, let's maybe take a step back. But let's take a step back into round 3. and figure out how this match ends. John, take us home.
Certainly, Colin, and with great gusto. Whitney wound up missing his 2-pointer to start off round 3, which is not what you want. I was not in either Whitney's head nor home when he got asked this question. I don't know how he heard Ray Liotta instead of Ray Fiennes, but at the end of the day, that's that human error that we've been talking about when it comes to these digital matches. So I understand how sometimes that's the way it goes. He was not able to get that 2-pointer. But then Alonzo got his three-pointer, with Winona Ryder starring in Girl Interrupted. It bounced back over to Final Exam. Lon was able to get the 2-pointer with the Superman the movie director, which then bounced it back to Deep 13, getting what I thought was a pretty difficult 5-pointer. I know I've been talking about how I was definitely able to get more questions right in this match than some of the other matches we've been seeing this season. I definitely would not have gotten that one. And I think it's a testament to, like we've been saying, these are two gentlemen. They watch films, you understand? They really like movies like that. I couldn't even write down the name of the spy movie. It was something about a falcon and a squid, maybe? Was it The Squid and the Whale? No, that was something else. But Deep 13, they were able to bounce it back to Final Exam, getting their 5-pointer. And that was huge because once they bounced it back, Paul Oyama missed his 3-pointer. With Dolph Lundgren starring in Universal Soldier, much like the delinquent Lon Harris, it also broke my heart that he didn't know that. What a not a great movie, certainly, but certainly a movie starring Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren. But then it came to the 5-pointer for Final Exam, really down to the wire, and they needed a JTE to really hammer home which Apatow movie, and again, I don't know how much this got discussed, but yeah, 2 movies in the same cinematic universe or what have you, where it's straight up the characters from one movie being in a second movie between Knocked Up and This Is 40, but they took their time with it. They really hammered it out, and they managed to get that right answer just in the nick of time, Colin.
That was honestly one of the best 5-pointer interactions. That's the stuff that I kind of like to see. And I like sports balls. This has been kind of cool to watch the NBA and some of these other sports without fans because you can hear what they're saying. Some broadcasts don't want you to hear what they're saying. Probably the NBA broadcast, but this is kind of us getting a little backdoor, a little peek behind the curtain of what it's like for these teams to operate that we don't usually get, because usually we get, the cover of the hands, they're hiding the microphones, you can't hear anything. And I think that's, it's cool for us, the fans, and I can understand why it's important to not be there in round 2 for the other teams to not be able to hear. But round 3, it's a little, I think that's cool that we can hear that, at least for that one question. I think that's interesting. It's cool for us, the fans. I thought this match blew away my expectations. I'm sure if you go back and listen to the live pay-per-view, I was kind of soft on this match. I thought Final Exam was going to handle I knew Final Exam was going to handle their business. I just thought it was, they were going to present a harder level of test, if you will, than they did. This was more of a spelling bee where one person got a question, just slightly wrong. This wasn't quite, too intense. But Bogz, what were your thoughts about this first half of the throwdown?
Yeah, just to summarize round 3 there, I was gutted with Whitney's 2-point miss personally, because that's my favorite Wes Anderson movie, and I knew immediately which one it was. And yeah, he said he misheard. So I think this is the difference here, where that on the Final Exam 3-pointer, they've talked it through, and obviously they've not come to a decision yet, so they've asked for a repeat. Like, why did Whitney not ask for a repeat? Like, we've seen him do this in other matches. Like, he just says, oh, well, I missed a question. Like, no, like, this is the difference of being, elite, going on to potential title shots, winning things, and as opposed to just being like, oh, I missed a question. Oh, well, let's just get on with it. So, yeah, I mean, I would like to see him ask for a repeat there. If if he would have asked for a repeat, maybe he would have heard the right question if he's misheard. So, I was a bit confused with that, but I wasn't totally surprised because I've seen this kind of, this kind of behavior before with these guys. But that was unfortunate, but excellent communication with Oyama and Harris. talked it out. It was either one of the two options. They've talked it out. I like Ayama's final answer, like replying to Christian. So just confirming, no, we've had a discussion. No, this is the final answer. Makes it clear as possible, and just to help out Christian. So yeah, there's no kind of miscommunication there. But no, excellent round 3 and kind of the right and deserved winners, I thought.
What a perfect way we can honor the late great Regis Philbin with giving final answers. I think that's great. If we could do that, I think that was warm in my heart last night because I looked over at my girlfriend. She's like, "Oh, look who wants to be a millionaire here." I was like, "Oh, this is nice. Warms the heart." Guys, we made it. The main event, the moment that we've been waiting for, kind of since we started the show. This match has been in the works since, it's been in the back of our minds. The return to singles, the return to the main league of this whole thing that we watch. Everything else, we love Star Wars, we love Inner Geekdom, but this is everything right now. The singles is back. Roca versus Irwin. Guys, I have so many words. I don't want to use them all now. John, we talked before the live stream. We talked during the live stream. We talked during the match. This was just fun, right?
2 of the undisputed greats. I could leave it there and just put that out there because that is really what you see in this match. Is 2 of the greatest players who are in this game currently proving why they are such. It's funny, I think, that on the Schmoedown Clips channel, they either the day of that live stream or the day before put up a clip of the sudden death round between Sam Levine and Clark Wolf, where it's that same level of intensity of those two just grinding it out, looking for any sort of lead that they can get over the other person. And again, 2 of the better players that have ever played this game in Sam and Clark. So this was really an intense round, an intense game overall that I think just showed how much John Roca and Ethan Erwin deserve to be regarded as greats. Certainly deserved this #1 contenders shot. It was a great match, Colin.
And, this it's a hard pill to swallow for a show on this network. But we're going to do our best to get through it. And because honestly, this is one of my favorite matches I've ever seen either of these guys play. They both handled their business. My hat's off to Ethan Erwin, first of all, just because to take the licks in the groups over, animation and all that stuff. And we even talked about it in the live show and stuff. And for that 3rd round, we'll get into the details stuff, but for that 3rd round to be what he got, I'm just, the respect level has to, you can never say anything about it again, right? Just for getting through that 3rd round and persevering like he did through that. That was the thing that stuck out to me. Bogz, I know you had a different pick than the ultimate outcome. I think we all did. But how were you feeling once you finally got to this part of the match, this part of the event?
Yeah, so obviously the promos got me hyped. Any kind of no chronic promo with Roca in. I mean, look how much highlights he has and kind of hype kind of occasions, and him got with the belts on his shoulder, slapping the butt. I love all that. Because as opposed to like other champs with who are respectful, shake people's hands, give a nice interview, but he's going crazy, so super hyped up and excited. I mean, that's what I tune in for personally. So I absolutely love that. So yeah, just with the whole, I completely forgot about the managers as well. So we were talking about the matches going in, and I was talking about kind of Roca's career against Owen's career. What the strengths, weaknesses are. I completely forgot Gucci and Lavina there. When they obviously come in taking shots at each other, I appreciated that as well, because obviously their involvement, especially Sam, I think he was saying the right things to Irwin at the right time, I think. And taking little shots at Roca here and there, which I'll come to in a second. I thought I did actually see a change in the match. which I'll come to at the time. But so it was all this going on, and obviously Roca, you can see kind of as soon as he's come in, he's ultra passionate, already emotional. You can see how much it means to him. So I was on the edge of my seat. It was awesome.
The show was in full effect. Starting for the top. Ooh, Nerd Chronic, boy, you had Nerd Chronic literally made me bruise my chest because I got hyped. Like I did the whole, like I was pounding the chest hard. Like we were out there, out there in a match. And it was, it was so good, man. I just couldn't get over, like you said, there's just endless amounts of shots of Roca just looking out, like
on stage, in studio, live events, like
that's with me
in the crowd,
yes.
Just all sorts on mics, I love it.
And then Irwin, even same thing, man. He's got the shots too. Anybody with shots with the belt, it's tough. You can anyone wearing the belt, it's tough, man. And you look good doing it. And you also just got to throw out the new graphics we got going on too. The round 1, round 2, round 3 stuff looking great. Throwing in them inserts. Also that's other stuff involved with the production side of stuff that it's just gotten better and better. And I know all that we're working through all this stuff is one thing constantly during all this. Is that we gotta remember we're all working through stuff for the first time too. So to get into, the actual match, because the first round was, it kind of reminded me of Chance and Robert Parker, Bogz. But John, if you want to break down round 1, we'll throw it to Bogz for round 2. Sorry,
no.
John. Well, break it down for me. That second question from Ethan, right? That kind of knocked everybody off for a little bit.
Yeah, I will say I do sort of agree with Sam that at a certain point, maybe not all 80s comedies, but certainly all 80s comedies about, young teenage or college age boys getting up to romps, they do all kind of blend together. But let's make sure we actually say what that was about. That was about Roca taking the first lead in round 1 with the Revenge of the Nerds question, where he went up by a point. And like we've said a lot of times, it's always interesting to try and tell when it's players of this caliber, is that one question miss going to be the only question that gets missed? Is that the moment that Roca wins the match? That did not wind up being the case, because then later on, Ethan was able to tie it back up with the question about who starred in 1932's The Mummy, taking it all the way back. We're not talking about Tom Cruise. We're not talking about Brendan Fraser. We're talking about a third person whose name I also did not write down, and I'm sorry about it.
Sure, it's
but we did get a very good first round, each of them only missing one question each, so tied up 7-7 going into round 2, Colin.
It was Boris Karloff.
Boris.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I got. Yeah, exactly. So I'm sitting there in round 1, right? And there's this moment where I'm sitting like, I've seen this before. And that's why I mentioned it really made me feel like Chance and Robert Parker up until Boris Karloff. I was like, oh, this is this match is not going to go. Yeah. What did Luke say? This is not going to go the way you think.
Yeah.
No. And it was right. Bogz, man, round 2 was a round, and questions were asked and words were said. Please do your best to break down what occurred in that span of time.
Yeah, so I'll go through my issues with it, and I'd love to hear your guys, but I'm not going to spend too long on it. First of all, I was a little bit shocked that Roca and Gucci let Irwin go first, because I've seen interviews this week where he says he feels he's strongest at going first. He wants to go first. So I thought, I was thinking they were going to say, okay, let's put him on the back foot, make him wait, make him sweat, kind of thing. But yeah, no, they've decided to put him first. I thought, okay, and then obviously we've come to the Detroit. Obviously he spun Catherine Bigelow. I think he spun Spinner's Choice, right? And he's picked Catherine Bigelow, and the first question is, what decade was the movie Detroit set in. I actually watched that on a plane, so I actually knew that question. So yeah, and yeah, obviously he said 60s, and then Mark has kind of finished off or probed and said, "Oh, I presume you're referring to 1960s and not 1860s." And then obviously Roca's had issue with that and said, you finished off the question for him there. You finished off the answer for him there. And then Christian's more or less asked, "Oh, do you want to challenge?" And then obviously Gucci's come on and they've said, "Yeah, we'll challenge that." So, and then the outcome was that he's kept his challenge, but they've got to ask. Erwin's had to kind of ask another question again because he didn't give the full answer in terms of 1960 and not the abbreviation. So my view on it was, I think it goes back to what we said a few weeks ago. I think that was just technically, I understand he's not giving you the full answer, but we all know he knows the answer. We all know he's on about 1960s. Yes, obviously there's been kind of revolts previously, but the answer is 1960s. He said 60s. I personally think it's fine. I think he was going, like what we said a few weeks ago, it's going back to where in this digital world here, where we can, or players can kind of really kind of pick hairs, split hairs, and kind of rinse kind of the challenges, which was upheld. So I completely understand he's got a point, but for me, I would have just left it and let him carry on because first I thought it was actually banter on Roca's part, like he was just kind of playing, or he was like asking kind of the Christian and Mark, like, "Oh, is that worth challenging?" kind of thing, and due to kind of the reaction, that's when he challenged it. So I didn't think it was worth challenging, to be honest. But in the end, he got another question, which I thought was actually an easier question, which obviously he got a 2-pointer on anyway. So obviously he's gone perfect and Roca's gone perfect for the rest of round 2. But that was obviously the main talking point of round 2.
All right, well, let's get into the tea. So I feel like this is just a moment in Schmoedown history that just sets a precedent. If you're talking about a historical time, we're just going to need the full 4 digits. That's just what it is. I think that going forward, we're just going to smooth out. If you're playing this game, right? If you're playing this game and you want to win, you should leave you should leave the judges with as little reason to doubt your answer as possible. And when it comes to years, there's a couple other digits that you can put down. And he was saying them. He didn't even write them down, which I can understand is different. If he was writing it down in round 1, he probably would have written down the 1960s, just because that just seems a little more natural to somebody to write down the 1960s, but to say the 60s is a little more, freer. So I totally understand. I totally understand both sides of it. I'm not the biggest fan of how it was kind of pushed both ways. It felt like both Christian and Mark might have overstepped their purpose on the broadcast a little bit. Like Christian has said multiple times, it is the player's responsibility to bring up a challenge. And Christian said to Roca, "Are you challenging?" That's Christian enacting the challenge to him. Roca didn't say, I don't remember Roca really saying, "Oh, I should challenge it. Maybe I should challenge it." He, like you said, Bogz, it did kind of sound like, just Roca kind of rambling to himself in between, just kind of getting something off his chest and then move on to the next thing. It kind of felt like the Kalinowski Chance Psylocke incident where Kalinowski's kind of, all right, yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's a horrible, whatever. On to the next one. But he gave him some grief for it in the midst of it. And maybe John was in the midst of giving him some grief, but then Christian coming in with, "Well, do you want to challenge?" And going back and watching it, he was pretty quick to go down and add Bobby Gucci to the call. And Bobby Gucci came in pretty quickly with his twirling, floating ball and was kind of like, "Yeah, we're going to do this." Like, he was just kind of ready. Didn't really have much discussion about it with his player either. Just kind of happened. It was weird. It was a really weird, it was an enigma. It was truly, we haven't really seen anything like that before. This is unique. This is but I think it's going to be something that's looked at and scrutinized and talked about all week, and just like we're doing right now, because it dictated the entire match. It was the turning point of the match. Sam Levine drops in later and says that's going to be in his head for the rest of the match, and now just feel happy about that. And it seemed like he was right, even though John went on a trailblaze. You could tell that something was just, that was still there. John, where are you at with your thoughts on this whole drama?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys kind of covered a lot of it. I will say, though, to the defense sort of Christian, I think it makes sense that he was a little bit more gung-ho about it, because we've seen in situations past where he kind of leaves it a little bit to the side. We saw it with Winston, for example, in the Star Wars Championship match, where Christian was kind of blazing through, getting through the rules, and Winston didn't really have the time to jump on a challenge. So I think Christian was kind of trying to avoid that a little bit. Again, it just gets into the technical realities of trying to run this kind of show, where it's like you kind of have to have the managers ready to drop in at a moment's notice to take advantage of those challenges. So I completely sympathize with Christian in that regard. Kind of agreeing with both of what you guys are saying. I think that the challenge was totally fair. I think it completely makes sense why Roca decided to pursue that. I think it's a fair thing. It's one of those issues where we're just seeing in the league now more and more with folks with this high caliber of knowledge. I think it's completely reasonable to jump on any weakness you can potentially see in an opponent. Ultimately, I do feel like the issue with that question, as it was, comes down to the onus of Mark saying, I assume you mean that. It's, you know what happens when you assume something. You make an ass of Mark and his bird calls. So I think it's precisely. Hey. But yeah, I also then agree with the decision. I think because it seemed to me that the onus was predominantly on Mark more so than Ethan, it makes sense that then the next course of action is to read a new question. Certainly, I understand why John is upset about it. I think it completely makes sense because it was something that was out of his control as far as being a player. But I do stand by the decision. It's also worth pointing out that Dan Murrell talked about how there was also, he believed, going to be a little bit of drama with a question in this game. And I wanted to quickly shout out our producers who brought up that the controversy that it's possible Dan was referring to was in a question in the Catherine Bigelow round for Ethan, his round 2, where Jeremy Renner's rank in the Hurt Locker is credited as both Staff Sergeant and Sergeant First Class, but Ethan only answered Sergeant. So that's another instance where it gets kind of into the same murky waters as what we've been talking about with the 60s as far as, is Sergeant descriptive enough?
That's the less murky waters, though, to me. That's
for me as well, yeah.
That's way less murky. That's way more clear that he messed up. That's a wrong answer.
Yeah, to me that's a wrong answer.
That's a wrong answer. From a kid
they haven't challenged.
Parents and grandparents were in the military. That's a wrong answer because there is a difference between a sergeant, a staff sergeant, and a sergeant. It's like partly right.
It's just not.
They're different levels of. Ask those dudes if there's a difference between those three things. Ask people in those three different ranks if there's a difference between them, and they will say yes. So for this purpose, I am on board with this being a wrong answer. That we need some form of when the NFL puts out a thing saying that, we messed up the refs messed up the play yesterday. And that was actually a touchdown. And we apologize. That was a mess up. We apologize to the team that ended up losing because of that. That's kind of the situation that we have here because that is a wrong answer. And then if it's not because of what was on the answer sheet, that also needs to be addressed. That needs to be set. Was it given to him because Sergeant was the only thing on the answer sheets? Because then if that's the case, then it was just a bad question with a bad answer. Because that wasn't, if you went by the first thing you saw on IMDb and it just said Sergeant First Class and didn't put the first class, it just put the sergeant, then that's a different conversation of just not understanding military hierarchy, which I can't blame somebody for not, leveling through Call of Duty 20,000 times as a child either, and seeing all the.
How about this? There's a difference between X-Men and X-Men First Class.
That's
there we go.
what,
I made it about movies.
Thank you. You figured it out. Yeah, and so I'm with Dan. I think that's huge, and I think I'm actually, Roca deserves the weekend to do whatever he's watching Umbrella Academy, which is what I'm going to be doing after we finish recording here. But I think once he hears that it was a thing about the military, that might even put a little more salt on the wound that it's gonna make him mad that he didn't catch it in the first place as well. Man, it's just hard in these. It's hard in the Schmoedown, right? It's just really hard when you watch the Star Wars matches and you watch guys like Ben Bateman, and the rundown guy said this last night and put it greatly, that Ben Bateman will scrap for a point. Ben Bateman will take the shirt off his back and do whatever it takes to get a point. If he has to, however long the challenge takes, he will fight it out. And that's kind of the mentality that it seems that John was going for, that it's kind of bled over to him. It's like, look, if there's any shadow of a doubt here, I got to fight for it. And it just seems sometimes that it didn't fall his way. That you're either going to be in two school of thoughts, I think, on the whole, to backtrack a second to the decades dilemma. We'll call it the decade dilemma. So you either think that Ethan got the question wrong because he said the 60s, and you think that Roca should have gotten to give his version of the answer, or Roca should have just gotten an entirely new question that Ethan got. That question that Ethan got should have been given to Roca instead, because you think Ethan got it wrong, or Ethan was cool to get the question because it was just it was one of those things where the Schmoedown's done dozens of times before, where if something just goes wrong, they just give somebody a new question, and that's what we do. So I totally hear the people who think that Ethan got it wrong. That's the specificity of it. I hear the argument. You be as specific as possible. On the other side, that was just a shit show. And just chalk it up to the production and everything, and just the benefit of the doubt to the production team, and just giving him the new question. I'm cool with it. At the end of the day. All right, guys. So we're getting into round 3. All right. So the drama, put it on the island. It's gone. Send it off. Let's get back into the game, because it didn't stop. The game must go on, much like this show. John, round 3, break it down, dude. What's up?
Yeah, this was once again just an instance of the two of them staying right at each other's throats all the way throughout. Obviously, they both only missed one question in round 1. They both missed 0 questions in round 2, drama notwithstanding. So it starts on Ethan just because he is the lower ranked player of the two. He got an animation question. Everybody, he did it. He got it. We're all very proud of him. Lilo and Stitch, also one of my favorites, so I loved seeing that. So it bounced right back to Roca, and he got James McAvoy as the character Mr. Crumb or what have you in Split. So it bounced right back to Irwin, and he got his 3-pointer in dance movies. Granted, it was a classic, Hollywood stars, so it wound up being a little bit easier than what you might imagine when you hear dance movies as the category, but Ethan got it. So it bounced right back to Roca, and he got his 3-pointer with Desperado. And then we get to the 5-pointer. Ethan Erwin gets a tough animation. I know we always give Ethan a little bit of guff for not knowing animation questions, but I didn't know this one. This was a for sure tough animated question. It's, not a big deal, I don't think, that Ethan couldn't pull that one. That's a tough one to pull. But then what makes it interesting is that it bounces back to Roca, who has the opportunity to win the match right then and there. And he also gets a very tough question as well, with the quote of the acronym in Men in Black. I love that movie. I would not have been able to pull it. I probably would have just guessed fairy lives don't matter today, right? Because that kind of seems like it could fit in that movie as well. But ultimately, both Ethan and Roca missed their 5-pointers, which meant that coming out of round 3, we still had a tied game, Colin?
Well, I'm going to dub Ethan Erwin's round 3 the Miss Movies trilogy of categories, because if those were her 3 categories, been like, I got this in the bag. You see her be like, oh yes. If for some reason you've learned all 3 categories, she's like, oh, everything's gonna go fine here, right? If those were the categories that you told me that Ethan was gonna get, I probably would have told you that this match would end differently than it does, because we've heard nothing but Ethan can't hit this. Ethan can't hit animation. Ethan doesn't know animation. Yada, yada, yada. That last question was hard. I'm looking at right. That last question was hard. Like, my girlfriend and I, we love Emperor's New Groove. It's one of her favorite movies. That one, we couldn't nail it down. And it's really hard sometimes when we get into the, millennials think about the early 2000s Disney movies. They all kind of run together, right? They all kind of, it's like Atlantis, it's Treasure Planet, it's all, it's those kind of movies, and they're all kind of running together.
Princess and the Frog, these kind of
all that kind of stuff. That early, it's all kind of running together in your head. Meet the Robinsons as well. That's one of my favorite ones. And what Ethan guessed, because that's the one that got him in trouble last time. And I guess,
good guess.
Still a good guess, because that's a deep cut Disney movie with a lot of great quotes. But what a tough round 3. I mean, come on. The round. I feel like the 3-pointer for Ethan was a 3-pointer to anyone under a certain age, and to Ethan was like, oh, yeah, easy. The next. There's only one answer to go up and get next to Fred Astaire. So I was kind of, I wouldn't say I was let down by round 3, but it was tough. When you think all these, we haven't seen overtime in a while, but Bogz, we got overtime.
Yeah, if I can just summarize round 3. So where I saw the change is when just before they've picked their numbers, Sam has taken a shot at Roca and said, oh, he's got a history of missing his 5-pointers. And from that moment onwards, I don't know if he was doing it before, but I did notice that Roca was slouching a little bit when he's answering his questions. He was just like slouching. And I noticed Irwin, he was sitting up with his arm on his sofa, like across like this, just like relaxing, as if he's just talking with friends, or if it's like a family. He's in on his sofa at home, just relaxing, answering a 5-pointer and the other questions as well, where Roca slouched down. And I just thought, I wasn't confident for Roca going into round 3 just by the body language. And obviously, like super hard question for Irwin. I don't think that is a slight on his kind of lack of knowledge on animations, let's say, because I think he was studying, because otherwise I don't think he would have, maybe last year he would maybe have not got that Lilo and Stitch question. And then obviously Roca's missed that 5-pointer. And so that's why, I was thinking about all the kind of could have, would have, should have happened in round 2, where at the end of the day, it was in your hands to win that match. Obviously a massive 5-pointer, which you've missed, which is unfortunate. And then going into the overtime questions, I was not confident, just because just purely on the body language alone, which I just saw. And I just thought Irwin's just general kind of random kind of extensive knowledge he's got. I just thought he has a better chance in overtime. So I wasn't massively confident at that point, and I kind of saw indications of that in the 3rd round. So I kind of knew what was coming, to be honest.
Yeah, we talked about this in the pregame. Momentum. And momentum was secured, and it was a slow build. It was a slow build that started, I believe, with Roca not getting a perfect round 1. I think that was going to be huge in terms of momentum. He had the opportunity there and did not, capitalize on that first miss from Irwin. And that slowly builds into what happened in round 2. Please rewind to hear our thoughts on what happened in round 2. And then building to overtime. It just kind of, it was little tiny L's that eventually stacked up into what eventually happened. Little tiny ones. And that It's like little chinks, little chinks in the armor. Just get little jabs, you get them in, little shots here and there, and eventually they compound into what you saw, which was you saw it physically. We just kind of, man, I had it. You feel it. That exactly what you said, Bogz. It was in his hands. He had it. That's what you want as a player. You want to be in control, and he was in control. Had the chance, and I mean those are hard questions. Both guys will say, man, those were hard 5-pointers. Anyone will say those are tough 5-pointers. In overtime, it just is what it is. I mean, we can Monday morning quarterback the writing utensil situation or whatever. It could have been different, but just didn't get it in time. Just didn't get Sidney Pollock in time, and when you just that's just one of those things. It's unfortunate. It's just how the game goes, and we've seen it before, and we're gonna see it again. That sometimes you just don't have enough time to write it down, John.
Yeah, I mean it's a discussion that we've had before. As Dan brought up the David O. Russell of it all, where it's just that question of, okay, on the one hand, Roca very clearly knew the answer, and there's no way that he could have gleamed it from Ethan. So in that regard, you could argue he should have gotten the points. On the other hand, you could argue from a rules standpoint, they have the whiteboards for a reason, or in Roca's case, the notebook. Part of the game is writing down the answer as well as saying it. And you can argue that because he just wasn't able to get that question in enough time to write it, that he therefore shouldn't have gotten the points. It's one of those things where there's a strong argument either way. It's tough, especially because when you look at a question like that, where that's the thing that decided the game, it is still a testament to the fact that these were two really good players having a really good game. Like, it did not come down to a question of whether Ethan just knew more than John. It's just a question of being able to have that pull in enough time, even though he still knew it. So it was a brutal question to end the match on, both as far as I think a level of depth, and then also just the circumstances around getting to it. It was a tough one, man. It was a tough one. Obviously we're Outlaw Nation show, so obviously it's going to be a little bit tougher for us as folks who are ultimately at the end of the day going to be more allied with John Roca on that. But I mean, I know Roca was talking about Brandon and Shannon being in the chat. I really, truly, if you watch that match, yes, Roca lost. Yes, Ethan won. You cannot argue that both of these guys were playing at an insanely good level, Colin.
Yeah, that's the thing. Take your jabs on, choice of challenging or things like that. You can't question the character. You can question a throw that a guy makes. You can't question his heart or his love of the game. That's the only thing you can't do. You can sit there and you can be, you can get into the details of the game, but don't ever sit there and try to, judge someone on their, on their overall feelings about it. And I won't sit there in those chats and stand for any of that stuff. So you guys get any of that stuff, I'll squash it like a bug. But I mean, overall, this match, it kind of had everything we wanted, right? It was a great return to singles. It was a great return to just the main division of the Schmoedown, right? I mean, everything kind of has been new faces to discovering new stars, and this is, like we said, this is the old guard, and they came back, and they did not disappoint. This was a spectacle. This truly was an amazing pay-per-view, and I hate to say it, but I know who's actually really happy about the results of this, and that's Corruption and Swag. Corruption and Swag, huge winners last night. If we want to transition over to the what this means going forward, guys, because this is huge. Like not securing the Corruption event, for the final, where they secured those points for the tournament final. Finstock, the Finstock Exchange was really hoping to have Roca versus Merle so they could lock down that championship title points no matter what. And now, I mean, this is room for team. This is room for a lot of movement, Bogz. Do you see this as might be the end of the Exchange's reign at the top?
I mean, we'll see. There's a lot of matches, obviously, to play, a lot of matches to come. Who knows? But just going back to that overtime one, I just wanted to say that, yeah, I think maybe we do need a clearer definition on what can and can't be accepted. At the end of the day, he didn't have the full question written down. But I could kind of make out Sydney Pollock on it, like a SYN, and then I can kind of make out Pollock on it. Like, and he's given the right answer. I don't know. I would have personally accepted it, but you know,
yeah, that's definitely the argument that I've always gone back to, is that if they say it first and the other guy hasn't said it and you say it.
I mean, we're talking overtime for the number one contender. Like, this is all on the line. Should it come down to if someone's written his full name down on a whiteboard? Do you know what I mean?
And that was the part that kind of got to me where I was hearing. Did I hear that music?
Yeah, sorry, it's ice cream.
We're mutual real quick. So that's the one thing that's kind of gotten me over time is, look, that's if he's scribbling it down in that tiny little corner, right, and then in 15 seconds, and then shoves up to think that obviously not put himself in the best position to win. Bogz, give me a thumbs up when the ice cream truck is gone. We're good. Okay, cool. All right, and you're back. So I mean, I hear you there. There's got to be an ironing out of the rules. There's got to be, like, overtime we have to look at it and say, we understand when we're in the studio why, like, you got to write it down because this isn't the buzz around, right? So it's kind of, I guess their argument is, if you can write it down in the studio in overtime, why can't you write it down at home? And then, because if you can't, how are you going to change the rules to fit in the studio?
Yeah.
Right? Because, I mean, unless both guys have on, like, noise canceling headphones and they're just sitting there, like, yelling into microphones into the void. But
incredibly harsh either way, I think. But yeah, like you said, I mean, for swag and corruption, they must be, you know, kind of super happy with that win. And it gets, obviously, the usual suspects off the bottom as well, which was, they've got their own little rivalry at the bottom of the league, playing the other guys, playing the kind of who's going to finish bottom kind of thing. So yeah, obviously we've got tournaments coming up, so it's definitely an interesting change. But yeah, I just want to say about Roca, just, you know, that him even addressing, like you're saying, Shannon, Brendan Meyer, Sam Levine, and, you know, getting emotional. Like, I love that kind of stuff. Honestly, like, who else in this game are you going to get that kind of reaction from? That's why I'll always appreciate him. Always keeps me hooked in. And yeah, I just win, lose or draw, I'm still backing the guy. So yeah, no slight on him. You haven't let Outlaw Nation down at all in any way, John. In fact, you've done us proud. So yeah, appreciate the shout outs for the Outlaw Nation.
Oh, and I said the same thing. I had to put it out there. He didn't let anybody down, man. That was one of the toughest games I've ever seen anybody slug through. And John, I mean, we love you, man. Like, you, constant inspiration for everyone that you know is in this Outlaw Nation. Like, I mean, we're here because of you, and I mean, we'll follow you no matter what. So leading into, you know, some stuff that I was seeing floating around last night was Roca might make a pretty darn good manager. That was something I saw last night floating around chats that looked pretty darn good. But that, you know, you got a team's match to play. There's a whole year to go. But I think that in itself opens up, you know, a world of storylines for a certain Harloff to play with. John, what do you see for the future of the Outlaw in the Schmoedown?
Oh, well, we'll get to my thoughts about the Outlaw in a hot second. But first, I want to make sure that we cut back to our other co-host, Mina. Make sure that we also get her thoughts. We got her thoughts earlier on Final Exam versus Deep 13. But I also want to hear her thoughts on John Roca versus Ethan Erwin. Mina, take it away. And then I'll give 5 seconds of editing time to edit around that. Excellent. Thank you so much, Mina. Glad we were able to get your thoughts on the match despite not being able to get you here recording with us right now. As far as my thoughts on what this is looking like for Outlaw Nation, I think that is probably looking a little bit too far ahead into the future. Obviously, Roca knows that he's got a couple things he's got to contend with right now before he can really think that much about next season. You know, he's got a title match against Corruption coming up soon, especially since that is the team right now that is giving the Finstock Exchange the most drama. I think he's going to be really more hyper-focused on that than anything else, especially because he does still have a lot of allegiance to the Finstock Exchange. Like, he was talking about how he was, you know, liking having Tom in his corner, about being able to have folks like Dan, Ben, Craig, the Barbarian, backing him up going into this match. So I think that right now he's focused enough on the help that he's been getting from the Finstock Exchange that he's not thinking about dipping to form his own team. That said, you know, obviously when season 8 rolls around, if he is still feeling like he doesn't know how much his heart can take it with matches like this, I think it could definitely be interesting. Obviously, there were supposed to be 10 factions, I believe, when the faction system first came into place last year. So if you're looking for new managers, you could definitely do a lot worse than John the Outlaw Roca. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, as far as the faction standings themselves go, like you were saying, Bogz, there is still that kind of battle for last place going. Usual suspects now not in last place, that being the Mercs, but the suspects are far from out of the woods, especially when looking at that singles tournament, looking at the kind of folks that everybody has in there, the Mercs included, with Bibiani and Brendan Meyer in there. So it's going to be tough for the usual suspects to really keep their heads above water. Meanwhile, you do have Finstock Exchange, who are, you know, really now having to contend with Corruption specifically, but then, of course, with Swag getting a win at this event, that's also keeping them inching ever closer to that top spot. So definitely a lot more unstable ground as far as the faction standings go than what we might have seen earlier on in the season, Colin.
And speaking of unstable, Bogz, I had a bit of an idea that might relate back to a little Premier League.
Okay.
Could you imagine, you know, if we kept this ninth, if we kept it 9 and 10, right? If we took it to 10 or had like a bottom 2, what if those factions were completely disbanded at the end of each season and you didn't want to be in the bottom 2? Because that's always something that's in the back of the minds of English football.
Relegated.
You don't want to be relegated, right? You don't want to be relegated because you'll spend a whole. So John and other non-sports ball loving folk in soccer, in the English Premier League, you have to maintain a certain level of excellence in terms of points earned over the season, or you are relegated to a worse division of football, of soccer. So you will so then you have to work your way back up to the top league again. And that part of it's obviously a little harder. There's no minor league system for us to fall down to. But the idea of there being some form of punishment for, you know, being the worst team sounds, I don't know, just kind of came to me out of nowhere. Bogz on 13. Is that something, does that, liven this whole faction thing up a bit?
Yeah, I wouldn't be totally against that. I don't know what punishment. I don't know if we should call it a punishment.
Punishment, stakes. Maybe stakes. Maybe punishment.
Maybe if they start on like, I don't know, minus 5 points or something. I don't know for next season or I'm not sure. But yeah, like I wouldn't be totally against that. So yeah, I just going into kind of next week's matches. Obviously, Swag's playing. The dungeon, obviously, they can move off from the bottom towards kind of mid-table, and we've got another Pride against the final exam match. So we've got 2 Swag matches next week, so they can really catch kind of towards the top of the league. So I don't know how many points overall they could maybe get. What's the actual point difference? But they could really do some damage.
I got you there. It's they could get a total maximum hypothetically of 3 points. They could get a total of 3 points, I believe, if Final Exam knocks out or technically knocks out the Pride. Meanwhile, since it's a title match for Inner Geekdom, I believe that could be 3 points generally, and then 4 points if Chandru were to say somehow knock out Kevin Smets. So that could, and again, that's obviously talking best case scenario for Swag. But if they were able to get 7 points from one event alone, yikes.
That's literally what I like. They are then tied for first place. If they get those 7 points, they move ahead of Corruption for a tie, which you would have to then give them the edge by knockouts. I would say they would be in first place, because if they won both of those matches via knockout, I don't know what the tiebreaker is. We haven't gotten into that portion of what it is, but for football and soccer, it's goal difference. So it's how many points did you score? So the only thing we have here in our table is KOs. So, if they're sitting there with 6 KOs and the same amount of points and Finstocks has 4, that's huge.
Are they playing matches? Are they going to get points for playing matches? I don't remember what they said.
Yes.
I presume they are.
I think that if they are, they're going to be diminished value, right?
Yeah.
There'll be 1 point, I think, will probably be awarded, and 2 for a knockout, I think seems what's going to go down.
Yeah.
If somewhere around there, obviously it's not going to be more than that. But looking ahead, we got the play-in matches this week. Not this week, next week, right? Or is that this week?
No, I think there's a gap. There's
a gap, right? So there's no matches this week, and we got the pay-per-view. That's right. There's so much Schmoedown in my brain right now. I'm kind of excited for a little break, and then because this is the calm before the storm, and it's one is literally coming for me right now. There's a hurricane literally coming for where I live. So hopefully that'll pass before the Schmoedown storm comes. But John, maybe we'll do another pregame live stream before the event next week. But give me your early thoughts. What's one thing you're looking forward to out of the next Throwdown?
Oh, sure, yeah. I gotta say, I'm interested to see Smets come back. He was in one of the first matches that we saw in this digital landscape, which was the 4 Champions Patreon match that wound up getting dropped on YouTube, which he won. So that still makes me feel like, as much as I love Swag and as much as the dungeon is kind of struggling right now, I do still feel like Kevin's going to be able to inch it out, because not only has he proven he can hang with some of the best in Inner Geekdom, he can also hang with some of the best end of sentence. So I would probably have to give the edge to Kevin Smets. I don't know about this team's match, man. I was definitely feeling like, obviously, Final Exam was going to beat Deep 13. I did think it was going to be close. I didn't quite think it was going to be as close as it was. And obviously, you've got Ben Goddard, a guy who, a lot of people were talking more about Rookie of the Year before going 1-1 in Inner Geekdom. But still, keep in mind, that is still a triple threat competitor who has been playing in some digital matches, knows what he's doing. And Rachel, who people have continuously been discounting, who has that passion right now to kind of shut some of those critics up. And a 2-0 team as well. Like, there's a reason they were ranked higher than both Deep 13 and Final Exam. So that one, I really don't know, man. I really don't know what I could say about that one. That one I'm excited to see, because I don't feel super comfortable picking a winner just yet.
And correct me if you feel I'm wrong here, but for some reason, though, the Pride are in the position of, they had to, Final Exam had to play into the Pride match. It feels like Final Exam are the veteran squad, even though, right, it just kind of feels that way. But the Pride are so intense. It's just their intensity of their love of the game. And when you look at Goddard, man, he's coming for some folks. You can tell on his Twitch streams, you can tell when he's on SEN, man, he's had it with the losing. He doesn't want it anymore. And I think he's been waiting to really go up against some, like, this is probably his biggest test in terms of like overall talent that he's going to face, and see what he's got, because I think he's got a good shot to knock him out. Maybe not knock him out, but, you know, take him down. And I think that's going to be, I think it's going to be just like I was blown away by the first match. And it, you know, loved it. I hope next week is exactly the same. Bogz, I think I know where you're going to go with this, but what are you looking forward to next week?
Yeah, so I'm definitely obviously looking forward to the Iacovetta match. I'll come to that in a second. But in terms of the teams match, I mean, I think just overall, as you said, Colin, I just think there's less game tape on Goddard. So I think overall, what maybe final exam, maybe a bit cautious going in, because obviously he has proven to be a good player, but we don't really know how good. We kind of know Silvestrini and where she's at, so I think they can maybe kind of manage that situation better. But with Ben, he's a bit of an unknown quantity. So yeah, it's a bit kind of hard to predict where it's going to go. But overall, I am going to go with final exam because of higher caliber of players, proven, and comparing the two matches that they've played, I think the two opponents that final exam have played have been in kind of better teams basically than who the Pride have played. So I'm going to go back them for that reason. And just to quickly summarize Iacovetta, I am definitely backing Chandru Dandapani, because I don't particularly like the way that he's almost getting dismissed in this match, in terms of, you know, the public opinion totally being on Smets's side, as if, you know, it's as if it's a foregone conclusion. So I say it every episode, I tend to back the underdog. I'm definitely doing that this match. Obviously, I love Smets, don't get me wrong, like, but yeah, I just think that Chandru's got something, and I've seen it on a few occasions where people from Swag totally credit Chandru from helping them with studying, with preparation, with how he plays, with tactics. And I just think, you know, underdog, like they said earlier, you know, this is upset city this season. So I'm backing Chandru for the win, for the upset win. But I think it's going to go down to the wire. It's going to be so intense, that match is. And yeah, I can't wait.
I can honestly see both matches going the exact same way that these two matches went in the pay-per-view, where the teams match goes to the 5-pointer, and then the other match goes to overtime. Like, I'm totally down for that to go the exact same way, because I eat that up all day.
I'm looking forward to the promos as well in the week with, you know, Kaiser, Smets, Chandru, Winston. It's gonna be really funny.
Oh my gosh, this is gonna be, oh man, just imagine like Nerd Chronics like Dropbox. He just like wakes up every day and there's just like, what did these people put in here today? And it's just like, imagine all like Kaiser actually sends these like 20-minute diatribes that he has to somehow like edit down to, you know, 45 seconds of killer content, because it's always killer. And that's like, man, I just can't wait. So I think that'll do it, everyone. I mean, this has been great. This has been a longer batch, you know, longer bit of episode. We hope you enjoy it. We hope you stuck around. Thanks for hanging out during the live stream. Everybody that hung out during the live stream. I mean, this is a little bit of time inception, warpy, timey-wimey stuff going on here. But I think this was probably one of the best weeks of Schmoedown just matches we've had since, in terms of overall quality of the matches since this has started. And it's just a blast, guys. So that'll do it, folks. Guys, take it away. Get us out of here. I've been talking to a mic.
John, you go first.
Sure. Listen, you can follow me at John Barr Tweets on Twitter and on Instagram. I got to go to work after this, unfortunately, so I'll be thinking about these matches all day. But it was lovely getting to talk to you gentlemen about it.
And Bogz.
Yeah, so you can find me at Bogz on Twitter or at ABBogz on Instagram. Yeah, so obviously we've got no matches this week, and then we've got a big pay-per-view next week. But from that point onwards, there's going to be matches more or less every day. So you're going to see loads of us. We're going to be doing loads of midweek shows and all this. So get ready. Yeah, so our lives have been taken over by the Schmoedown.
And we allow that. You can find me at @_C Morris. Please follow this show. Join the Outlaw Nation Facebook group. Follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify, Anchor, all those places. We are everywhere. On Twitter, on Instagram, @TUSS Pod. We are all over the place. Winston Marshall, come on the show, bud. Come on the show. And that'll do it, folks, for this episode of the Ultimate Schmoedown Show.